Hey, this is Tracy Lewis with Stuff and Things, and I am going to spend a week with many mates. Today we're going to start with basic stamping as well as the stamp prep to make sure that you keep these particular sentiments all organized. So there's two ways that I would consider good ways to organize these stamps. First, because of weight, I don't tend to keep the extra rubber. But in the case with lots of small stamps, keeping the rubber and just leaving it in the case is one really good way to keep things organized. I have an alternative for you, however, should you want to go that extra mile and you have the tools to do it, and that is with this set. I didn't want to have these sentiments laid out in some random pattern. I really wanted them lined up, and it's actually a two case set when you get it. So what I've done with this one is got really fancy, and I organized it with a labeler. It actually lines up, this inside lines up with what's on the cover so that I can really quickly go to the sentiment and pull it off. I even went so far, because I was a little bit crazy, I went ahead and typed the font somewhat like the font is on the stamp itself. I think that was overkill because you can see on the cover, if you've laid them out where they're located, you can see exactly what the font is by just closing the cover. So I think that extra step I went was not necessarily needed. So this is an option, but at a minimum, I would highly recommend you leave the rubber in. Even if, like me, you live in a trailer and you have very little space and weight is a concern, I would still opt to leave the rubber in if you didn't want to go and label everything. All right, so then I just want to point out that these are the dies. They do come as a bundle, and I am not going to work with these dies. Today is all about beginning stamping, just doing some really basic cards with the sentiments only. And later in the week, we will play with the dies. And I always, on the back of the dies, I went ahead and I had to trim this down because it was extra wide one, but notice this is the part number. I wanted to retain the part number, so I did cut it off and taped it to the top of the piece of paper. That gives the name of the dies. The die names typically are close, but not the same as the stamp set. So this stamp set is called Many Mates, and the dies are called Many Medallions dies. So that is why I keep this extra piece, because it's important that I keep track of the name and the part number. So that is my recommendation for organizing. Now I have taken these and sorted them how they go together, so you can see that actually the small sentiments, move this so that you can see all of it. All right, so I grouped all of the like sentiments, so this whole row can all go together. You can mix and match it however you want. The middle row here, I actually need this to go. It's so funny, it's like a puzzle game. All right, so you've got a congrats. The congrats can go with a variety of different sentiments. Congrats on your retirement. You totally earned it, so happy for you. We have thanks. You're so nice. I love the you're just so fabulous. And its sentiment is actually over here in the celebrate side. You're just so fabulous. I'm glad you were born. Get well soon, better yet. Just thinking of you because you make me smile. Life is better with you. And then definitely just thinking of you, I'm glad you were born would also work. So these are kind of a setup to be mix and match. which is awesome. I like the outline because if all you had to start with was white cardstock and this stamp set, you could add some color by coloring in the blocked outline. And now we're going to get to doing some stamping. So with these fine lines, you will have a tendency, if you are a heavy stamper, to get heavy and light lines. So I actually recommend, if you don't have a Stamparatus, which I do have a Stamparatus, and I have a plan to do some stamping with it later in the week, but today is all about the basic beginner stamper who has very little supplies at this point, and how they can use this set to get the most out of it. So I, again, as I've said in recent videos, if you want to stamp, you want to go straight down, and then when on these rubber with the foam, I kind of do a little circular motion to get, and look, see, it went heavy on the outside. So I'm going to turn that over because that's the joy of having lots of extra cardstock. I'm going to ink this guy up. And my goal is to make a more even impression. I am lining up the corner here. That's how I figure out if I'm going to stamp in the bottom right quadrant, which I often do if I'm just doing a sentiment. And that came out much more even. These are really sticky. All right, so there's just the most basic. If we take this and want to color, you could use any markers. I'm just going to grab a blend to just show you how easy it is to color in. Blends have a tendency to soak into the paper, so you want to go super light, just barely touching the paper, staying in the middle of the letters. That way, if the ink bleeds out a little bit from the middle, which it will, you're not going to get many over the lines. And then this really small one, be very, very, very light. So if you had a bullet nib, which I'm using the brush nib on the bottom, but if you had the bullet nib, which I do, it's the same but easier to get that really light feathery color so that it doesn't go outside the lines. There you go. Just the most basic. Now, let's dress that up a little bit further. If you have a couple more colors in your arsenal, I am going to grab light smoky slate. You can just do any kind of a little line along or dashes along the bottom to give it a shadow effect. So that is some of the most basic, nice. The front would be just like that. Now the next thing you can do, let's say you bought the combo, because these come in a combo. So this is Purple Posy Light and Dark. And I am going to do an ombre effect. The way the blends work is they will darken is you do multiple layers. So I'm doing a multiple layer only in the middle of the light purple posy to blend in with the dark and offer the middle. And this birthday is going to be very small, so let me grab the bullet side. It's best if you want a blended look to go wet on wet if you let the ink dry, which is, it will just end up being not quite as blended looking. So for very little effort, you end up with a nice looking little sentiment. If that's all you had, it looks great. So now we have the inside of the card. Not use that one. All right, inside of the card. I really like using It's Your Day. Okay, let that dry because I'm going to color. And this is even more petite, so definitely want the bullet nib. For the larger letters, I do like the speed that you can use, get finished with the brush side. Now we'll pop in I'm just adding more layers to get it to the dark that I'm looking for. I am not going to even try the brush on the little dainty It's Your letters. This ink does dry, and it will lighten up as it dries. And then I'm going to take the light smoky slate bullet side. And then we have outside of the card and inside of the card, and we'll ignore that one. Alright, that concludes today's video. Tomorrow we will move on to some more elaborate stamping options for the beginner stamper, and we'll also work on one casual level card that's been stepped up. Please leave your comments, questions, and suggestions either here on the video or over on my blog. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel and hit that bell so you're notified when these next videos go live. And thanks for watching.